Welcome to the Leader in You podcast brought to you by EMC Leaders. We're so excited to be here. We are here at the ATD Conference. My name is Polina, and I am here co-hosting this amazing podcast with the wonderful Dr. Lola Gershfeld.
Hello everyone. We are so excited to be here. I'm super excited to be at the ATD Conference. It is one of my highlights of the year, and especially today because Niamh Hannan, who is our director of EMC in Ireland, is here with me.
Yes, Niamh, we're so excited to have you here. Welcome. Niamh has flown all the way from Ireland to speak with us on stage at the ATD Conference, and we're excited to have her here on our podcast today.
I know, I'm really excited to be here at my first ATD conference and to meet you guys in person.
I know. The first time.
Because we've been working together online for like 3 years, and it's now it's real. You're real.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
You're not an AI character. So we're so excited because it's been such a great start already to the conference. This morning we talked about a fascinating topic, which of course we do mention throughout our podcast, of course, every week, but we're going to talk a little bit more details about it. And we talked about engagement and the power of an engaged team and how common it is to find disengagement in the workplace. So we're going to start with you, Dr. Lola. Tell us first about the study that we talked about, along with what happens when people are disengaged in the workplace.
Well, I find this study actually very fascinating because Gallup put out this study in 2026, the state of the global workforce. And what they found is that engagement among employees is declining. So they looked at what causes the disengagement on team in the first place. And what they linked to is that when the managers are disengaged, that causes employees disengagement. Well, yay, duh, right? That makes sense.
Yay for us because we have a process to change that. Not yay for them.
But
we don't want them to be disengaged.
But isn't that kind of like common sense?
Oh, yeah, like it makes sense.
If managers are disengaged, you will have disengaged employees. What do you think about that, Niamh?
Absolutely. It makes a lot of sense, because if a manager is kind of like tuned out, then what hope is there for their team?
Yes. And actually last week's podcast, we talked about the effect of we look at our managers like they are
like a
parent, attachment
right.
figure, right? So, and this was really interesting to see that it's very true. When you have a disengaged or low engaged manager, you end up with a team that also has very low engagement. So I find it really interesting that it's such a common thing. And what we saw too, and we talked about earlier this morning, is what happens when you do have disengagement. What happens to the team? What happens to the business?
Yes, well, the first thing is people tend to call
in sick.
Yes, exactly.
So they're not even showing up to work.
Yes, they tend to disengage not just at work, while at work, but to say, like, I don't want to come to work because I'm not really connecting with my manager. My manager doesn't want to talk about it, or they avoid conversations, which makes sense. But what happens is the employees get very confused. So there's lack of collaboration, there's lack of follow through with the projects. Project gets delayed, or people don't know how to make decisions. Decisions stall. So everything becomes very difficult to accomplish and to do when the employees and the managers are disengaged.
100%. It impacts on everything. So you talked a little bit about absenteeism there, but a lot of disengagement is presenteeism, where people are showing up and they're kind of putting in the time, but it's like just clocking in and clocking out. They're not motivated. They're not collaborating. So their brain isn't working on full power. So productivity is down, and then performance is lower. So you're losing out on a lot of potential from your team.
By design, our brain seeks growth and development. And this is Carl Rogers' work, saying that people have an innate need to grow and develop. And when they are disengaged, when they are, like you said, presentism, they come to work and they really not putting their own 100%, and they're not really fulfilling their work, they get very depressed. and very, very anxious in a way, the same way. Because we have an innate need to develop and grow. And when we are not growing, we start to feel anxious at work, and we get also depressed. So it really impacts our well-being.
So something else that we talked about in the session was the withdraw, pursue cycle. And we talked about the different ways that you can have a cycle in your relationships at work. And it's very common actually in all your relationships in life. So you can have a withdraw, pursue cycle. You can have a pursue cycle, or withdraw cycle. And we talked about this many times. So if you've been listening to us for a long time, you've heard this before. And it was interesting to watch the interaction from the audience, because we had them really discuss with someone sitting next to them what the cycle that they experience at work and what they notice with some of the people that they work with, or even their managers. And so it was so common and relatable to understand that withdraw, pursue cycle is very, very common, and that they get in this kind of cycle where they feel stuck. So something that Niamh said today in our discussion this morning was that when you have like a pursuer or withdrawer, it's similar to the game Pac-Man. I used to play it all the time when I was younger.
So you know it.
Yeah.
I was wondering in case it was just my generation and older.
No. And so that was such a funny reference, because in like my experience, Pac-Man was such a positive, fun game, right? But it's so true. It's like the pursuer is chasing
the
withdrawer, and the withdrawer is running away.
Like the ghosty, just running away and hiding around corners,
exactly.
avoiding and
maybe
just
that's
insane.
where we learned it from.
I don't think so.
I think it probably existed long before Pac-Man did, and will for a long time to come. What I noticed, I guess, of the audience is that they really related to, they understand, they get the pursuer withdrawer, because they're identifying themselves and whoever they live with. Usually it's like, oh yeah, that's my partner, as well as whoever they work with, because these are just common human traits. We get stuck. It doesn't matter how good your relationship is, you're still going to get triggered every now and again. You're still going to get disconnected every now and again. So we all fall into that pattern of the negative cycle of pursuer or withdrawer. We all have kind of our go-to mode. And I think everybody can identify and recognize that once you explain it a little bit. It's like, oh, that's what's happening. That makes sense. Mm-hmm. And what I love about that is because it is easy for people to recognize the pursuer behavior and the withdrawer behavior. And when you identify that's happening, now you know you're in a negative cycle. You know, whenever you're seeing pursuer or withdrawer behavior, you know there's a negative cycle. You know there's a disconnect, and now you have the tools to solve that problem. Because sometimes what happens is when people aren't aware or they're not familiar is that they don't recognize that they're caught in a negative cycle, and they're just blaming and complaining and getting caught up in reactivity.
This was interesting, because once people understand the pattern, like how does it help them, right? This is what that people say, like, okay, I understand the pattern, what's next?
Yeah.
Next. And this is, I think you mentioned this in the presentation, is that we're not changing people, we are changing the pattern. And that's very relieving for people to know that you're not the bad guy, or you might have said that you're not the bad guy and the other person doesn't need to change behavior. We have to change the pattern. And if we don't recognize that what kind of pattern we have, how are we going to change it if we don't even know what kind of pattern we have?
Well,
so that's another important thing.
I think this is what's interesting about repeating the same thing over and over again every podcast. And what we say is that we're not asking to change behaviors in anything that we do, in any interaction that we have, or conflicts that you experience in the workplace. We want to really understand what the root of the issue is. And that always comes down to the emotions. Emotional experience is what drives people to make the decisions that they do and to behave the way they behave. So this is what we talked about also this morning, is how can we change the cycle? And ultimately, sometimes we lose the understanding of why we learn the EMC process to begin with. And the reason why we learn it is so that we can stay, what we talked about this morning, which was accessible, responsive, and engaged in conflicts. It's very easy to stay accessible, responsive, and engaged out of conflicts. You know, they say like, oh, everything's great and happy when everyone's happy, but then when, you know,
And the pressure's on.
Yes.
Can you stay calm?
And when you get into conflict, that's where everybody kind of loses their balance. And so can you stay accessible, responsive, and engaged and balanced in conflict? So that, I think, is really what's so prominent about this process, is that it does that for you. It allows you to learn how to re-engage and just de-escalate and then be able to communicate effectively.
Yes, exactly. And I remember working with this particular company, and once they understood, like what you just said, it was so important, because conflict can be visible and conflict can be invisible, like underneath, right? Like, for example, disengagement is the sign of conflict, and people don't put those two things together. Because I think somebody was saying at the session is like, what's the big deal? I'm a withdrawer. I'm go to my office and I work. I'm not making any big deal. It's that person who is yelling and screaming and complaining all the time that is causing the problem. Why don't you talk to that person, right? This is one of the things pursuer, like a person who is attacking and the person who is withdrawing don't get, how they actually activate and fuel the cycle to continue that disconnection going.
Yeah, it's really amazing.
I think that's a really important point, because very often in the workplace people withdraw in order to keep up the professional veneer, and then if you're a withdrawer you think, well, I'm not part of the problem. But you know, when you understand the cycle, it's like that very withdrawing behavior, that shutting down, that distancing, that is triggering for a pursuer. So it is part of the cycle, you know.
Exactly.
So we take the blame off the individuals, and it's about recognizing that, okay, the enemy here is the negative cycle that you guys are caught in.
But also, I like the way that you put that. It's like we still want, because I hear a lot of times people say like, oh, well then who has to be held accountable, right? And I think that it's important for each person to understand that they are held accountable because they're all part of the situation that's occurring.
I think that's important, because it's like then it's shifting, that the blame isn't just on the pursuer, the person who is actually in their own mind they're trying to fix it.
Right.
And the withdrawer, of course, in their mind is, well, either I'm not part of the problem or I'm fixing it by staying out of this.
Yes.
I'm not escalating. I'm not, in there demanding. But it is still triggering for the other person. So you're part of the solution then.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
that's why we need, ideally, both come to the table.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, and that's a good point too, because one of the things that I notice is maybe a team member is disconnected. They want to come talk to me about their issue, right? And so that they feel better, right? They go through the process, they go through the form, and then they feel de-escalated and a bit more regulated, but it's not like it's been resolved, or that injury or that experience with the other person has been healed. And so I like that you said that, because it is important for us, even if we do have an opportunity to share what's going on for ourselves, it's good to also connect with the person that's actually you have the conflict with, as opposed to just, okay, I've shared my part with you, but I actually have a conflict with someone else, and now I'm
so
kind of still unresolved.
I guess there's maybe two kind of different things there that I want to respond to. So one is that ideally you would have, of course, the opportunity to, once you've de-escalated yourself and you're coming from a different place now, like the likelihood of you going back into that relationship, when you're de-escalated, you go back in differently. So even if you never have the conversation with the other person, there's been a shift.
Yeah.
Because you're going to be different.
Right.
Because that's
right.
why the emotions are so important. It's not like you have to work yourself up to say something necessarily. If you can, and that's what I love, that if you get the two people together, it's so powerful, because obviously you can have the bonding conversations, you can completely change how that relationship works. But I love how it is also really powerful with just one person, because not just are they de-escalating, but you can really see a powerful shift in their growth in empathy and compassion for the other person, which means that they're less likely to be going in all sensitized and easily triggered by the other person again, and they're less likely to trigger the other person because they're coming in from a different place in themselves.
Right, yeah, that's a very good point. That's good. What's your thoughts on that, Dr. Lola?
Well, I think the awareness always brings us clarity on how to navigate through difficult conversations. And that's what we are looking for. We're looking for how do you actually have these difficult conversations and come out connected. Right? It's like the process actually becomes like a regular scheduled flight. Mm-hmm. You know, what airline did you take today?
Aer Lingus.
Aer Lingus, yeah?
Lingus.
Aer Lingus. I took Delta Airline. And you?
I took Uber.
So to
airline.
get to our destination, we know the airplane works. Mm-hmm. We know what the destination is, and we know how to get there. Right? The same thing with our EMC process. What is the destination? The destination is always connection. That's what we have. And how do we know how to deal with that turbulence in the moment, and we know how to get people there. And so that's why I like about this EMC process. I don't have to think about it. I don't have to come up with some ideas or some tools. It's always there. It is predictable, repeatable, consistent, and reliable. Duplicatable. Yeah. First of all, it calms me down because I'm focused. I'm focused to get them through the form, right? And that is relieving for me. The person who is a leader, who wants to help people, and help them to repair their connection. And I see it all the time. It's like, hallelujah, right?
Hallelujah. Hallelujah.
It is one of the most meaningful and satisfying experiences that I have in my life.
That's so beautiful.
Yes.
I love it so much.
I love it.
Okay, well, thank you very much for watching. This is the Leader in You mini shortened version podcast here coming to you live from ATD. My name is Polina, and I am the co-host with Dr. Lola Gershfeld, and this is Niamh Hannan. Do you want to add something?
Yes. We're here at ATD in Los Angeles, California, right? Mm-hmm. And we're so happy to share this experience with you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for joining us at our sessions. And actually, somebody walked to me and says, "Oh, I listened to your podcast."
I love that.
And I want to shout out to this person, and Chantel, I think her name is. And I just want to say thank you so much for being here. Do you want to say also?
Yeah, it's been really exciting to be in LA for me to come over and to. Not my first time, but yeah, and it's a short enough visit. I'll have to be back.
Nice.
But so yeah, thank you for listening in to us and tuning in with us, and do get in touch if you have any questions.
Yes, and we'll see you all next week.
Bye.